Good evening, everybody. My name is Benjamin Brainard. I hope you're all doing well. I wanted to take a few minutes out of your weekend to talk with you a little bit about the denomination I chose to look at this week in relation to our week's readings. So, the denomination I chose was the American Assemblies of God, and I want to talk to you a little bit about why I chose that denomination. I chose the American Assemblies of God because I live in rural Oregon, where it's very conservative. Virtually everybody is in some type of agricultural industry, and I thought it's rather odd that there are so many Assemblies of God Pentecostal churches in such a very conservative area. I myself grew up in this area and come from a very evangelical, Calvinistic background. So I figured there was some overlap between what we read this past week and the Assemblies of God and why it's so prevalent in this area. So I looked at 3 articles that I think were very important to the development of the Assemblies of God. The first was entitled Marvel to the Many. It was about D.L. Moody and his evangelistic crusades. The second was entitled The Lumberjack's Sky Pilot, and it was about Frank Higgins and his kind of evangelistic, we'll say, crusade with the lumberjacks in Minnesota. And then, of course, the last one was Hymnology as History by Stephen Marani. I'm probably mispronouncing that. Unfortunately, I'm not a linguist. So that one I thought was very interesting because it discussed that the hymns of the 1800s reveal a common religious language that show the true values that the average Christian was very interested in. And I thought, well, when I look at these values and I look at the core values of the Assemblies of God, there's a lot of overlap there. The Assemblies of God is answering the values that we see in these sermons with their core belief statements. Now, the Assemblies of God, they began as a denomination in 1914 in California, but their core beliefs are rather interesting. They have a core belief in salvation, baptism of the Holy Spirit, divine healing, and the second coming of Christ. Now, the religious language that we see in the hymns is revealing the concept that people were very interested in atonement, the invitation of God, their own salvation, and the notion of heaven and hell. These notions that we see developing as this religious language in the 1800s are the core beliefs that drive the Assemblies of God. And what's more is that the Assemblies of God, based off of their website, really stresses the personal interactions that you see with preachers like D.L. Moody and Frank Higgins. It's interesting. In their own history statement, they say that they are basically heirs, inheritors of the evangelistic efforts of people like D.L. Moody. They actually cite his name in their own history as their inspiration. So I think that when we look at this past week's reading, we can clearly see a connection between the development of one of America's largest Pentecostal denominations. I hope you see it too, and I'd love to hear some feedback from you. Thank you, and have a great weekend.